That's 800-610-9050. 800-610-9050.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you and your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
This is Slickery Trigger for Rebel Road Tactical. With proper care and feeding, your pistol will be ready when you need it. There to save your life. Shouldn't your gear be that good? Whether you need a holster for comfortable everyday carry or a tough-as-nails holster for your next training course, Rebel Road Tactical has what you need. Check us out on the web at rebelroadtactical.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
My name is Jessie. I'm a United States Special Forces widow. This gives me a unique perspective on the world around us. If you're willing to listen, I'll tell you how I see it, and I won't pull any punches. This is my POV, which stands for point of view. All right, this is Jessie. I am happy to be back with you guys. I apologize that I wasn't here at the top of the hour as scheduled. Weather and circumstances beyond my control, such as helping make arrangements for a relative in Florida, and for those of you in the United States, you understand that there's a hurricane bearing down on Florida, took priority. I'm sorry, human life takes priority over radio shows, as much as I love you guys. All right, enough with the apologies. Let's get on with the show. There is a lot to talk about. We are going to start off with the audio clip for what I think is the biggest story that I have. And that is that the U.S., the UN, and other allies very well may have given North Korea exemptions from what is written in the Iran nuclear deal. Yeah, you heard me. They may have been made exempt from the exact deal. So, yeah, I don't like that. That is not cool. Means that the Obama administration is lying. All right, I've got two audio clips on this. We're going to start with what I think is the more interesting one first. Let's take a listen.
When Iran began implementing the nuclear deal on January 16th this year, world powers, including the U.S., allegedly granted Tehran special exemptions to the limits on its powers, including the U.S., allegedly granted Tehran special exemptions to the limits on its nuclear program, all in secret. This, according to a new analysis of the deal by longtime expert on Iran's nuclear program, David Albright.
We were surprised
about the number and, again, the secrecy. If it's not a big issue, then why is it secret?
Today, State Department spokesman John Kirby said confidentiality was part of the nuclear agreement from the beginning and that Congress has been kept in the loop. More broadly, he countered,
the Joint Commission has not and will not loosen any of the commitments and has not provided any exceptions that would allow Iran to retain or process material in excess of its JCPOA limits that it could use in a breakout scenario.
In other words, no exemptions, he claims, to the Iran nuclear deal. Albright's response?
The exemptions were decided upon prior to implementation day, so that when implementation day happened, Iran was in full compliance.
The exemptions, Albright says, loosen restrictions designed to lengthen Iran's so-called breakout period, the time required to build a nuclear weapon if Iran were to exit the nuclear agreement. One exemption, he says, allows Iran to hold more than its agreed limit of 300 kilograms of low-enriched uranium, if that uranium is in waste form. But that waste could conceivably, Albright says, be recovered and converted into a form usable in a nuclear weapon. Another exemption allows Iran to operate 19 so-called hot cells and larger than the agreement set. Why is that important? Because larger hot cells could be used to produce plutonium, a second path to a bomb. Iran is also allowed to produce and store heavy water above the nuclear agreement's cap of 130 tons for sale outside the country, making Iran, in effect, an international supplier of nuclear material for profit.
The trend is, in my mind, is not good. It's toward weakening the deal instead of strengthening the deal.
The State Department's Kirby again counters,
Iran's nuclear commitments under the JCPOA have not changed. There's been no moving of the goalpost, as it were.
All right. First of all, you all, if you're a regular listener to this show, you know I am no fan of the current administration. Secondly, I have been talking about this deal for a while and saying that there were loopholes. I had a feeling there were secret deals that we weren't being told about, and now you know why. Everyone else is screaming. Now, I'm not quite sure what heavy water is, so I'm going to keep talking while I do a quick web search on it and see if we can get an answer. Judy, if you're listening, shoot me a message on what heavy water is. That is, I'm referring to Dr. Judy L. Moore, my friend who was on with us last night discussing Juno and Jupiter. And if you missed it, it was a blast. A nice break from the usual politics and terrorism routine. All right. Let's see if we can find out what heavy water is real quick before I proceed. But I'm sorry, if they really did make these secret deals, I'm not happy. I mean, that's just not good. Alright, I am pulling up a Wikipedia article on heavy water as we speak. And for anybody waiting on the Jen and Rick show, I am hanging out in the chat room. Feel free to join me. So, and the chat room can be found at KLRNRadio.com. Alright, heavy water has a 2H2O, and the 2 is superscript, so it's little and up by the top of the H. And it contains larger than the normal amount of the hydrogen isotope deuterium. Okay, let's see what its uses are. I'm trying to find real quick the uses of it. Yeah, it's going to be too involved for the amount of time we have, but definitely a fail. A fail. With Iran. I mean, I'm sorry. So you hold them to a deal on paper and in public, And behind the scenes you're going, oh, this is okay, that's okay. So... And State Department spokesman John Kirby said that Iran was not granted exceptions to limits on low-enriched uranium or heavy water that would allow them to have a usable amount of material in excess of what they're supposed to have towards the production of fissile material. Fissile material is what's used for bombs, folks. He repeatedly declined to directly address the report's findings on the exemption, saying the Joint Commission's work is confidential. So, we're trying to hide our actions behind, oh, this is confidential, we can't talk about it. Please, get lost. David Albright also said in an article that the exemptions risk setting precedents that Iran could use to seek additional waivers. Albright served as an inspector with the United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, team that investigated former Iraqi President Saddam Hussein's nuclear weapons program. So I'd say this man knows of whence he speaks. While Albright has neither endorsed nor denounced the overall agreement, he has expressed concern over what he considers potential flaws in the nuclear deal, including the expiration of key limitations on Iran's nuclear work in 10 to 15 years. Yeah, no kidding. It's got a sunset clause, meaning at 10 to 15 years they still have no sanctions, and guess what? They can now make a bomb. Alright. Democratic Senator Robert Menendez, a leading critic of the Iran nuclear deal and a senior member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, told Reuters in an email, "I was not aware, nor did I receive any briefing on the exemptions." As part of the concessions that allowed Iran to exceed uranium limits, the Joint Commission agreed to exempt unknown quantities. Yes, you heard me. Unknown quantities of 3.5% LEU contained in liquid, solid, and sludge waste stored at the Iranian nuclear facilities. That ain't cool, folks. Because guess what? That waste, while we're used to thinking of waste as garbage, something we can't reuse, that waste can be reprocessed and turned into the material for a nuclear bomb. The deal allowed Iran to meet the 130-ton limit on heavy water produced at its Iraq facility by selling the excess stock on the open market. But with no buyer available, the Joint Commission helped Tehran meet the sanctions relief deadlines by allowing it to send 50 tons of the material, which can be used in nuclear weapons production, to Oman, Jordan, where it's stored under Iranian control. The shipment to Oman of the heavy water that can be used in nuclear weapons production has already been reported. Albright's report made the new assertion that the Joint Commission approved this concession. I believe they did too. I'm sorry. This deal, there was too much secrecy, not enough openness and sunshine. Alright, moving on. I'm only going to hit the highlights tonight because I have a lot more I could be talking about, but as we all know, I got on late tonight because I was taking care of family or friends. Now, I have not been ignoring Kaepernick. I've been getting tweets about it. I do have an opinion, which I will state at the end of my show. Alright. Our friends North Korea. Oh yes, North Korea. Come on, what would a day around here be? Oh, first I've got another quick article about Iran. Iran's commercial air. Iran is desperate for passenger planes, but can't have them. Why? They have a fleet of moldering, quote-unquote, moldering Russian-made Tupolev jets, which is the workhorse of the country's beleaguered passenger fleet. The pilot announces when you're taking off, "Ladies and gentlemen, trembling and shaking is normal." And when it's taking off, the whole plane shakes like mad. The planes are so heavy it's like they're made of steel. It's bizarre to think that these machines fly. So, Iran has grounded 23 of the country's Tupolev jets after a crash. Iran's reliance on an aircraft that has been banned from Western airports in years, in part because of its engine noise, showed how badly its commercial aviation sector was hobbled by U.S. sanctions. Yes, we sanctioned them in 1979 after they took over our embassy and held people for 444 days. So, alright, let's see what... Alright. When sanctions were eased in January after Iran certified it had shelved its nuclear program, which we already discussed that they have not, Tehran immediately opened talks with Boeing and European manufacturer Airbus to buy hundreds of aircraft. The deals, potentially worth tens of billions of dollars, represent the biggest commercial result of the nuclear accord. Airplanes have a real political and symbolic effect for the Iranian government. Whenever ordinary people and politicians refer to how immoral and cruel these sanctions are, they brought up the example of the Iranian airlines and their aging commercial fleet. Iranian officials have long argued that U.S. sanctions force its aviation industry to rely on outdated jets, making air travel less safe for civilians. Iran does have one of the world's worst safety records since 1979. 1,672 people have died in 92 aircraft-related accidents in the country, and that is according to Flight Safety Foundation. In June, Iran announced it had reached a $25 billion agreement to purchase or lease more than 100 aircraft from Chicago-based Boeing. But Republican opponents of the nuclear deal in the House of Representatives approved legislation in July to block the sale. In a letter to Boeing, the two Republican lawmakers cited accusations that Iran's commercial aviation sector has been used to funnel troops and weapons to terrorist organizations and dictators such as Syrian President Bashar Assad. Now, if you take a quick look at your scorecard, Iran is backing Assad along with... Well, Iran and Russia are friends, and Russia is backing North Korea, and Iran, for a brief period of time, did allow Russia to use one of its airstrips to bomb ISIS. And for those of you who are new to the show and don't know what the scorecard is, it is the scorecard on which we keep up with who's on what side in the war over Syria. Alright. I've got another article here. David Sneedon, the 24-year-old Brigham Young University student, disappeared in August 2004 while hiking in China's Yunnan province. When Chinese police and the U.S. Embassy could not find him, China said Sneedon likely fell to his death in Tiger Leaping Gorge, a theory his parents do not believe plausible. Sneedon's family claims a website devoted to the search for him that they believe Sneedon was captured by North Korea as being held a hostage there. The claim appears to have stemmed from information gathered over the years and recent comments from Choi Sung-young, head of South Korea's abductees family reunion. On Wednesday, a Japanese news source cited that Sneedon was abducted by agents of North Korea government and whisked away some 2,500 miles from the Chinese province where he vanished. Yahoo News Japan also reported that Sneedon became an English tutor to Kim Jong-un, the dictatorial leader of North Korea, and is now believed to have a wife and 2 children. The news outlet cited South Korean abductees family union for the information. Sneedon lives in Pyongyang, where he teaches English. Sneedon's parents believe their son was taken by the North Korean regime for training purposes because of his fluency in Korean. Sneedon, who grew up in Nebraska, served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in South Korea, the newspaper reported. His mother, Kathleen Sneedon, told the paper that the report about her son being in North Korea doesn't surprise me at all. We just knew in our heart that he was alive, so we had to keep fighting. Yeah. Wouldn't surprise me at all. All right. I know. I'm already almost out of time. My, oh my. Where does the time go? All right. Last month, as in the very tail of last month, Pentagon Chief Ashton Carter visited the South China Sea. And that's big. When the Secretary of Defense visits an aircraft carrier. That's huge, especially when it's sailing through the disputed waters of the South China Sea. Even before Ash Carter, the Defense Secretary, stepped off a helicopter onto the deck of the USS John C. Stennis on Friday afternoon, Beijing was already expressing its anger with the new American operations in the region. The Pentagon chief was set to visit the carrier a day after making public that the U.S. was staging joint patrols in the South China Sea with the Philippines, Beijing's most outspoken rival on the maritime struggle. What's new is not an American carrier in this region, said Mr. Carter on board the USS Stennis. What's new is the context of the transition, the context of the tension which exists, which we are attempting to reduce. Mr. Carter said on Thursday that U.S. troops and military equipment will be sent on regular rotations to the Philippines as Manila welcomes back American forces 25 years after they were expelled from the country in the wake of the fall of Ferdinand Marcos, the late dictator. The relaunched alliance has infuriated China, which called it a manifestation of Cold War mentality and is not conducive to called it a manifestation of Cold War mentality and said it is not conducive to peace and stability in the South China Sea. But the U.S. and Philippine officials said the move was a response to China's rapid expansion of its military presence. For those of you who are unaware of what is going on in the South China Sea, China is trying to claim way more territory in the South China Sea than it should ever be able to lay claim to, based on man-made. Yes, they took rocks, reefs, and other little things and built them up to make man-made islands, on which they have stationed military. Freight worth some $5 billion a year passes through the area by sea, and huge oil and gas deposits are also believed to lie in the region. Brunei, Malaysia, Philippines, Taiwan, and Vietnam also have claims to parts of the waters of the South China Sea. The Philippines did bring its dispute with Beijing before an international maritime arbitration tribunal, and the tribunal did rule in favor of the Philippines. And this article might be older than I thought, but still interesting. Alright, let's keep moving. Alright, I've got another North Korea one, and this one's just human interest. And then I am going to move on. Alright, as we know, we have discussed, if you are a regular listener at all to the show or have any knowledge of world affairs, you know that North and South Korea are still technically at war. Yes, I said war. There is a ceasefire in place. There has been since 1953. It's been more than 6 decades since the two Koreas and numerous families were divided. Many Koreans and Korean Americans haven't had the opportunity to see family members during that time. Although North and South Korea have facilitated reunions, 19 face-to-face reunions and 7 video reunions since 1985. According to U.S. Senate documents over the years, Korean Americans have never received the opportunity to participate. Stanfield, a retired librarian living in Indiana, has spearheaded the movement to help reunite Korean Americans with families in North Korea. After immigrating to the United States so these families are basically pushing to see their family members that are still trapped in North Korea after the war. Stanfield hasn't seen her father and one of her brothers since the end of World War II, when the rest of the family left Manchuria for Korea. Her father and brother stayed in Manchuria to continue their agricultural business, with the intentions of eventually joining the rest of the family. The two were able to get to North Korea in 1950, the year the Korean War broke out. During the war, millions of people came to the South, but my father couldn't. During the war, my brother fought for North Korea, and one of my brothers fought for South Korea. My brothers were fighting each other. That was my family's story. It was many families' story. So... But she was able to find out a little bit of information about, because she mentioned his name to a tour guide. While she was lobbying on behalf of Korean Americans who did not know what happened to their family, Stanfield learned more about her father and brother through her nephew, who traveled to Pyongyang with a group of ministers. Stanfield said he mentioned the father's name to a guide, and the next day her brother and his son were waiting to meet her nephew. So... there was sort of a reunification, but not much. Come on, what is the harm with family reunions? I think it would be no offense, and I'm not trying to give North Korea any ideas, they got enough of their own. I think it would be a great PR thing, and trust me, North Korea, you can use some good PR right now. Alright. As I promised... Kaepernick. Many people reached out to me for my thoughts on this issue. I do respect everyone and thank everyone who stands for the national anthem. But I'm going to take the side of all the men and women I've talked this over with. I've decided I'm going to stick up their opinion. What they fight for is the Constitution and the freedom of speech. And if he wants to sit during the national anthem, that is his right. And while I do not agree with this, I would never disrespect our country by sitting during the national anthem. That is the right that many men and women who have worn the uniform say they have fought for in many, many ways and cases. And they respect his decision while they do not agree with it and do not support it. They say we fought so that he would have a choice. Alright, almost out of here. We are going to end the show with a commercial, and then I'm out of here. We're going to sneak in one commercial.
All writers are prone to becoming so attached to our characters and stories that we struggle to see why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing to full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, shaping stories into masterpieces that can stand the test of time. Editing services are provided for all genres and all age categories. Services range from critiques of the short story through to the line edits of the full-length novel and copy editing for those preparing for publication. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your website, as well as help with those book blurbs and promotional material. We won't abandon you to the masses. We want to celebrate with you in your successes. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services and prices, visit us at blackwolfeditorial.com.
Alright, folks, and on that note, I'm out of here!
You can lay down if you wanna.